Shabbat Shalom. What color is Orlando? What color is Orlando? If you were going to fly over Orlando and you were looking down, what color would you say this area was? Green, right? Maybe with a little bit of the blue reflected off all of the many lakes, but it's primarily a green place. And that's really weird for me, because I come from San Diego. And anybody here ever flown in over San Diego in the daytime? What color is San Diego? Brown. Very, very brown. But it has an advantage. It has an advantage in theological understanding. You'll have to bear with me for this. See, I grew up on the playground of Avocado Elementary. Yes, it was named for avocados. And Avocado Elementary did not have the funding to have a grass playground. It just wasn't in the cards. And now looking back, it's probably best because of water usage. It would have been insane to have tried to have grass over the more than 2 football fields worth of dirt that we normally played on. But that dirt was fun. That dirt was amazing. Not just because, it's like one giant sandbox and because of all the different anthills that we could, explore and the ditches in the back that we always found random things that were there. No, the dirt was fun because the other thing that San Diego has is wind. And dirt plus wind is a lot of fun when you're a kid. It's not so much fun for the family when you get home with your completely drenched in sweat and dirt clothes, but when those dust devils would kick up, when we'd get those dust storms and they would go whizzing across that playground and we'd all be chasing and dancing and playing in the wind like little mini tornadoes that whirled around us, that was a lot of fun. And you wouldn't get that if we had a grass field. So what's the theological significance of this? Well, what are we made of? Dust. According to Torah, we are made of dust, specifically Adamah, from which the word Adam comes. Right? Adam, you might know, is not just a proper name of one particular person, but Adam is the term that we saw very clearly at the beginning of chapter 5, is for Zachar u'Nekeva. It is for both male and female. Adam means human. And Adam comes from Adamah, from the earth, from the soil. We are made from dirt. We are made from dirt. And, because all the other animals were also made from dirt, according to chapter 2. So we're made from dirt and, or else we're nothing more than an animal. What is the other thing we are made from? Ruach. Exactly, ruach. Which means spirit and wind. Have you not been paying attention to the Givurot that we have been reciting over the last few days in Shmini Atzeret? Yes, the emphasis is on the Geshem, on the falling of the rain, but it also says Mashiv ha-ruach, that God causes the wind to blow. And it is ruach that God blew into the dirt to create us. We are little tornadoes. We are little tornadoes. We are a mixture of dirt and wind, and that can only be called a tornado. Dust devil, but devil has such a strange connotation in English. We are little mini tornadoes whipping through life. And at some point in our life, the wind leaves the dirt behind. Just like it did when I was a child. You would play with these dust devils, and at some point the wind that had somehow made this swirling motion would move off in a different direction. And what would happen to the dust? It falls. As God tells us, you are dust, and you will go back to dust. The wind belongs to God. The Spirit goes on forever. But the dust, the dirt, this is temporary. This is just for now. And eventually, when the wind is gone, the dust will settle. But what do we do with that dust? Do we venerate the body? Do we venerate the body after it is gone? How do we bury those that have passed from this world to the next, whose wind has continued on in its journey, leaving behind only the earth from which it was made? We bury them respectfully, as we must for anything that has contained the holiness of that life essence, that spirit, that soul. But do we then find golden sarcophagi in order to enshrine the body? Do we build temples over the top of them in order to venerate the body? Do we mummify in order to preserve the body for all times? No. Yes. In Israel, it is not the same. There were family tombs or crypts where what you would do, and I apologize for anybody that is sensitive to this issue, is you wouldn't bury the dead and never see them again. You would take the body wrapped in proper burial garments, which were all identical for each person. We were all buried the same. And you would place them on a shelf inside one of these caves. And then you would come back after decomposition had done its job, and you could truly tell how much we were made just from dirt. And you would gather together the remnants, and you would put them into a little box, what's called an ossuary, and that would be put into a niche in the wall, and that would be part of your family tomb. That was it. Hardly the pyramids of Giza. And remember, Egypt was Israel's neighbor. We lived in Egypt. We saw Egyptian burial practices. We did not build the pyramids, but we saw them. They were already quite old by the time we were there in Egypt. Why did Egyptians do what they did? In fact, if you know your Egyptian history, you'll know that Egyptians built cities for the dead before they built cities for the living. Before there was settled life within Egypt along the Nile, before there was agriculture, before there was anything like the pharaonic system of kings, they had already begun to create fixed places where they would bury and venerate their dead, and that they returned to bury the new dead whenever they needed to. And that eventually turned into the system that gave us the massive pyramids that are so famous. What were they doing? Well, they had a very different idea. They believed that the body was the essential. The body could not be considered independent of the soul in any way, shape, or form, and that the soul needed the body in the afterlife. In fact, they believed this so strongly that they developed a system to not only protect the body, the pyramids, the tombs, and the other forms, but they also developed a system of mummification, in order to ensure that the body would decompose as little as possible, which is why they've now all ended up in the British Museum, under perfectly climatic control, so I guess that's kind of mission accomplished. They are even more protected now than ever before, even if they are long from their home thanks to British robbery. I mean, archaeology. Sorry, it's a pet peeve of most people around the world. But in Judaism, we looked at our next door neighbor and we went, what? What are you doing? We love our loved ones just as much as you do. And we believe that the body is a precious treasure which needs to be protected and cared for and tended while alive, and should be dealt with the utmost respect and kindness before burial. But once buried, it's afar, it's adamah again, it returns to dust, it goes back to the earth from which we came, and the soul returns to God. The dirt falls from the tornado, and the wind blows on beyond our understanding. We don't need to build a pile of the dirt and bow down to it, make offerings to it, slaves to it. At that point, the dirt is a reminder, but it is just dirt. And this has led to significant differences in how Judaism deals with our dead. As I mentioned, we bury all of our people the same, in simple a manner as possible. In this country, we have to use coffins in most places, but we use the simplest, most easily degradable coffins so that once the person has been buried, there will be nothing stopping their return to the earth. If you look at the way our graves are dug, you'll know that even though we have to use those concrete liners to maintain the integrity of the dirt, especially here in Florida, that at the bottom there is a hole, so that as decomposition occurs, the person truly can return to the earth as a whole, and not only be inside that concrete liner. And the clothes that a person is dressed in, the tafrichim, this was established thousands of years ago because we wanted to make sure there wasn't competition for a fashion parade for the dead. Indeed, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said that when he died, he wanted to be buried in the most simple clothes possible to set an example to the rest of the community, because there was a problem. People were getting a little Kardashian-ish about how they would bury their dead, and he wanted to stop that trend because we are not Egyptians. We venerate the soul and the life that it lives. We don't venerate the body. But there is one other very important practical difference between how we treat our dead and how the Egyptians treat our dead. So remember that process of mummification that I talked about? Yes, you've all seen it, of course. We've all seen the movie, Mummies, meh. Inside their pyramids, inside their tombs, what else do you find besides the giant sarcophagus with the mummy inside? You find little jars neatly arranged next to the dead. Canopic jars. What are they? They're for the organs. They're for the organs, right? Because if you just mummify the outside, the Egyptians learned, the wet, squishy stuff inside goes a little bad. And so therefore they would take out the squishy things and they would preserve them in their own ways and put them in the jars. But since the body was so essential, you couldn't just, throw them away. You had to keep them there next to the dead, so you'd have an array of all of your organs next to your body, inside of its sarcophagus, inside of its pyramid, everything ready to go. And Judaism says, wait a minute. So you take the body and you cut it up and you strip out all of the organs and you stick them in little jars and then you line it up. Is that really what we're doing with our organs? They're dust, right? They, like the rest of the body, are important and should be treated with respect, but we don't make a little collection along the windowsill of them. That is not what we do. And now in the modern world, we know that this has an even more important practical difference. Because canopic jars, taking these organs, putting them for preserving in some weird version of the afterlife, that is the opposite of what can be done with an organ now. When somebody passes away now and their heart is in good shape, do we take the heart and we just throw it in the dirt? No. We take it and we give it to another person in desperate need of a transplant. If someone dies and their liver, their lungs, their kidneys are in good shape, they can go to others that are in need. The life may have left the body of one, but the body can give life to another. By recognizing that what has been left behind is Adamah, is but the soil, and that from that soil we can give life to another Adam, we can give life to another person, Judaism has approved of organ donation. In fact, there are some rabbis that have even said it is a commandment to be prepared to give, if one can, from the organs of our body when we pass. That does require a little bit of extra effort on your part, however. If you're not already an organ donor, you have to actually sign up to be one. If you're not sure whether you're an organ donor, check your driver's license. It should say right at the bottom, donor. If that word isn't there, get it there. And I don't mean get a Sharpie. I mean, go and register yourself as an organ donor. Because once that wind has left this body behind, the most blessed and honored way we can use it is to give life to another. The soul returns to God. The body returns to the earth. But before all of it goes to the earth, we can allow it to do one more act of kindness and blessing to the world. Please, if you have not already done so, become an organ donor. It may be that you'll never be in the opportunity to do so. God willing, all of us should live long and well. But should anything happen that means that this tornado of wind finishes its journey without having expended all the energy within the dirt, let that dirt go somewhere else and build a life there as well. Shabbat Shalom.